by Reverend Nancy Schaefer, were I to teach a course on God. And I'll insert an editorial comment. I took an informal poll, and it indicates that few may know that a fuyu is a kind of persimmon that is not as acerbic as other persimmons. Also, the Japanese word for winter. The reading. Were I to teach a course on God, I would begin with a plate of persimmons, the sweet, crispy kind, the ones more orange than red, the hard, squat fuyus I eat each November morning on hot wheat cereal with almonds.
Henceforth, my Sunday goal, everyone leaves with one more piece of information about fruit than they came with. So this summer, we're going to do a little roots work on our Unitarian Universalism. Unitarian Universalism is a non-creedal religion, meaning we do not have a required set of theological beliefs that defines what it means to be a member of this church or this religion. Instead, while recognizing that we all have very diverse beliefs and creating space for that diversity of belief, we covenant together to affirm and promote 7 principles, which provide an ethical and aspirational framework for how we want to be together in community, for how we want to be in the world, and also for what kind of world we want to create for future generations. So it is our covenant and our 7 principles that are the unifying element in our religion. But the 7 principles themselves are very abstract, and they are very broad, and so they miss a lot in terms of what we want to hold up as a religious people. So we say that we ground these 7 principles within what we call a living tradition of wisdom and spirituality, drawn from sources as diverse as science, poetry, scripture, and personal experience. So there are 6 sources in particular that we claim as having informed and shaped Unitarian Universalism. So this summer we're going to be looking at these 6 sources in turn and seeing how they've influenced the course of our religion and how they are speaking to us today. And we're going to start naturally enough with the first source. The first source in its entirety goes like this. Our living tradition draws on direct experience of that transcending mystery and wonder affirmed in all cultures, which moves us to a renewal of the spirit and an openness to the forces which create and uphold life. Did you get all of that? We are a wordy people. Never say in one word what you can say in 5. That is the Unitarian Universalist way. So I will read it again. Our living tradition draws on direct experience of that transcending mystery and wonder affirmed in all cultures, which moves us to a renewal of the spirit and an openness to the forces which create and uphold life. So there are 2 parts to this. First, we recognize here that an encounter with transcendence is fundamental to religious experience. Now, that is not to say that people do not come to church or do not participate in a religion for many different reasons, right? Which are all perfectly fine and valid. People come to church for community, or because they just like singing, or they want education for their children, or they want to get involved in making the world a better place, and all of these and many other reasons. And they're all great. There's no right or wrong reason to come to church. But for many people, part of what leads them to religion or to their spiritual path that they're walking is a desire to be connected to something that is larger than themselves, something which is viewed as creative and life-nourishing, and something that is enduring. Something that is enduring. Some people call that larger something God or spirit or the divine. Some people call it nature or the universe, and some people do not use any word at all. Some people find transcendence in the connection of each of us to enduring human community and the universal aspirations of the human spirit, or in the working of love in the world. However we understand that larger something, we seek to be located within it, to find our place within it, so that as very temporary individuals who are born and live and die, we can be both grounded and enlarged by it, by this transcending mystery. So the experience of this transcending force, we note, evokes emotions of mystery and wonder. These are the profound religious emotions, wonder and awe, and I would also say gratitude, because we are so grateful for this existence around us. And the experience of this transcending force renews us and opens us up. It is life-affirming and life-positive. It is a creative encounter. So the second part of this is that it is an encounter, a personal encounter. In Unitarian Universalism, in our first source, we talk about the direct experience of transcendence. This means that in UU, we encourage people to draw on their own experiences in formulating their religious truth. And we encourage people to listen to their intuitions. And we encourage people to be active seekers after truth and meaning, to go out and have that encounter and live that encounter. And then we seek to create a space where we can all come back together and share what we have found and share those experiences. We come together to share those truths that we know will be different for all of us. This is laid out in our fourth principle, which promotes a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, and our third principle, encouragement to spiritual growth and acceptance of one another. So that's what we're about here. Now, historically, this emphasis on honoring personal experience in religion, it came to us early, but it did not come to us right off the bat. It was not where we started. When the great Reverend William Ellery Channing gave his famous Baltimore sermon in 1820 that laid the foundations for Unitarianism, he did not approach religious truth as a personal encounter with the sacred primarily. He located religious truth in Scripture, in the Bible. This was when Unitarianism was a form of Christianity. And he believed that the way to truth in religion was to read the Bible critically, in such a way that it did not offend reason or logic. And he felt that if you read the Bible critically, within it, you would find religious truth. Now, he did believe that people should grow and explore and continue to educate themselves and morally improve themselves. And he did believe that religious teachings, and in particular the example of the life of Jesus, could have a powerful impact on people's hearts and emotions. But religious truth itself came from an intellectual encounter with Scripture. And so the early Unitarians occupied themselves with a lot of really abstract intellectual academic arguments about Scripture. They argued with Orthodox people so that they could defend their Unitarian beliefs. And then they argued with other Unitarians about what exactly those beliefs were. And in particular importance was the question of miracles. Did you have to believe in miracles of the Bible in order to be Christian? Did the message of Christianity make any sense if you got rid of the miracles? Did Jesus have any authority if you got rid of the miracles? They spent a lot of time arguing about this in the first decades after Unitarianism came to be. So to a group of restless young souls within Unitarianism, this was all very much beside the point. They were not interested in a religion of carefully parsed academic arguments about Scripture. Instead, they closely observed their own hearts, and they found inside a primal need for connection and a primal capacity for wonder, and something inside them that called them to love their neighbors and want to live lives of meaning and service. And they said, surely this is its own kind of religious truth. Surely religious truth resides first and foremost here in the longings of the Spirit and not in academic journals. They wanted a religion that acknowledged their deep feelings about life and encouraged them to feel even deeper. These were the transcendentalists, people like Ralph Waldo Emerson, Henry David Thoreau, Margaret Fuller, Theodore Parker, and many more. And so they began advocating for a new way of being religious that started within, in the personal encounter of the individual soul with the wonder and mystery of life. Since this encounter was a universal human experience, they became open to the idea that religious truths could be found in texts other than the Bible. In Elizabeth Palmer Peabody's marvelous bookstore, they discovered new religious texts like the Bhagavad Gita or the Upanishads or writings about Buddhism. And they also pored over the works of the German Romantics, in whom they found kindred spirits. And a scholar named Schleiermacher was especially influential on their thinking. In the book American Transcendentalism, Philip Gura writes, "For Schleiermacher, religion did not consist in knowledge or action, but in feeling. Religion consisted in feeling, in religious emotion. Grace was one's perception through this religious feeling of the divinity of the quotidian, that is, the divinity of mundane daily life. An insight that was utterly transformative, making one's entire life an experience of the holy." Making one's entire life an experience of the holy. That was what the transcendentalists were after. And they found that they were just as likely to find it communing with nature alone than as reading Bibles inside of a church. And this approach to religion has deeply informed Unitarian Universalism ever since. For example, here is Schleiermacher as translated by Minnesota singer-songwriter Peter Mayer. If you know him, he wrote the hymn Blue Boat Home, which we sing all the time here at UUI. I don't know if he identifies as UU, but his songs themselves are like as UU gets. And I don't know if he knows that he is actually like channeling Schleiermacher when he went out to write his hymn Holy Now. But that's what he was doing. And this is from that hymn called Holy Now. It says, "This morning outside I stood and saw a little red-winged bird, shining like a burning bush, singing like a scripture verse. It made me want to bow my head. I remember when church let out. How things have changed since then. Everything is holy now. It used to be a world half there, heaven's second-rate hand-me-down, but I walk it with a reverent air, because everything is holy now." Now, as individuals, we have many different ideas about what the holy is, and we may not even use that word. And my experience of it may look very different than your experience of it. A few weeks ago, we had our service where we shared our different spiritual journeys with one another in small groups. And I hope you saw that there's a lot of diversity of religious belief and experience right here at UUI, which is one of the things that I think makes this such a fascinating place to be. Direct experience of transcending mystery and wonder means something different to each of us. For some UUs, their direct experience is very direct. Okay, mystical experiences are part of the human experience, and UUs have them just like everyone else. So, for example, here is UU Minister Rosemary McNatt, president of Star King School for Ministry, writing of an experience that changed her religious beliefs. In the essay, Faith of a Theist, she writes, "One day, God spoke. On retreat at a women's conference in Wisconsin, I joined with other participants in a sacred spiral dance led by a noted member of the women's spirituality movement. Asked as part of the dance to speak to the divine and listen for an answer, I joined in, impatient, skeptical, and freezing cold. And as I made a perfunctory list of my concerns, I could suddenly feel a presence in me. It was a presence that made itself felt in every cell of my body, and it was followed by a voice neither male nor female and utterly unlike anything I had ever felt. The voice made itself heard in my body, and it told me clearly, lovingly, 'Don't worry, my child, don't worry.' When I spoke to the voice about the hopes and dreams of my life, the secret desires I carried with me everywhere, it promised me all these things and more. And then the voice and presence left, and left me changed forever." Sometimes these kinds of direct, mystical experiences of transcendence are less about a presence and more about a kind of dissolving unity. A few weeks ago, when I was talking about the Reverend Lilia Cuervo, the first Latina UU minister, we shared about her mystical experience, of which she wrote, I had attended a few services at a UU church. This particular Sunday, the minister asked us to join hands and to start slowly chanting Om. And the resonance of the chant and the joy of belonging, just for a second or two, made me feel as if my body had disappeared and I was lifted from the earth. And in that momentary state of utter nothingness, I totally understood one thing, that we are all one. In that instant, I knew that the whole universe is a seamless tapestry, all sustained and nurtured by the great mystery. The power of that essential awareness ended my feelings of isolation. I knew I was one with the universe and with all that is, and that I must use my gifts to contribute to the welfare of all. Now, for some people, transcendence is found in the mystery and wonder of nature, of the great creative unfolding of life all around us. What if there were a universe, asked the Reverend Victoria Safford, in which a world was born out of a smallish star, and into that world at some point flew red-winged blackbirds, and into it swam sperm whales, and into it came crocuses and wind to lift the tiniest hairs on naked arms in spring when you run out to the mailbox. And into it at some point came onions out of soil and Mount Everest and also the coyote. If such a universe existed and you noticed it, what song would come out of your mouth? What prayer, what praises, what sacred offering? Interestingly enough, although the Unitarian founder William Ellery Channing that we spoke about may have justified his beliefs intellectually from a rational interpretation of the Bible, the deep roots of his personal spirituality came from that nature, from that question, what song would come out of your mouth? In the book, The Making of American Liberal Theology, Gary Dorian recounts how Channing spent his formative years as a young adult in long, solitary walks along the Newport beach, alone with the ocean. Channing would later write, "Seldom do I visit it now without thinking of the work which there, in the sight of that beauty, in the sound of those waves, was carried on in my soul. No spot on earth has formed me so much as that beach. There, in reverential sympathy with the mighty power around me, I became conscious of power within." Or as Hafiz wrote, "Cloak yourself in 1,000 ways, veil yourself with every enchantment, and yet I shall feel you. I shall salute you in the springing of cypresses and in the sheen of lakes, the laughter of fountains. I shall surely see you in tumbling clouds and brightly embroidered meadows, in morning flaming the mountains, in the clear arc of sky." Wonder and mystery lie all around us, from the surging ocean to the clear arc of sky, within the recesses of our own hearts, in the most humble of our daily experiences. Were I to teach a course on God, says the poet, I would begin with the plate of persimmons. Whatever language you use to describe it, the experience of mystery and wonder is among the most fundamental of religious experiences. It is where we start, and it is where we need to return regularly. There is something powerfully life-giving and life-renewing in each encounter with the transcendent, that which you consider sacred or holy, that thing larger than yourself that simultaneously anchors you and lifts you up. So I invite you to open your heart to mystery and to allow it in. I invite you to wonder at the universe around you, beautiful and vital, fearful and hard, ancient and strange. I invite you to listen to the love and longing inside your own heart, calling your spirit to return to something greater than yourself. What song, what prayer, what sacred offering would you give? May we honor that voice calling from deep inside us, and may we let it sing. Our closing hymn today is number 203 in your gray hymnal, All Creatures of the Earth and Sky. We're going to sing just the first 3 verses.